I'll be honest. No, but first of all, congratulations to Jannik. You more than deserve it. You're the best player in the world by far.
Tennis players are admitting it now. Not quietly, not carefully, out loud. The best player ever, conversation has arrived inside the locker rooms of Monte Carlo. April 2026. And the men inside those rooms are the ones who started it.
Sinner's ball speed is different.
Yeah.
He hits the ball very big.
Sinner is more consistent in general.
Yeah.
It's more his mentality.
The Monaco clay told the story first. Alcaraz, world number 1, two-time Roland Garros champion, stood across the net with nothing left. No adjustment, no answer. Just a racket hanging at his side and a scoreline that said everything. Something broke on that court. Something bigger than a match. 3 months, 4 consecutive Masters, 1,000 titles, Indian Wells, Miami without dropping a single set. First man in history to do that. Djokovic's 37 consecutive sets Masters record. Buried. All of it is buried before Roland Garros even opens its gates. Then came the microphones. Zverev stepped forward first, then de Minaur, then others. These were not compliments. Compliments sound lighter than this. This was reluctant, heavy, final. Is Jannik Sinner the best this sport has seen? Ever. The rivals already know the answer, they just haven't said it on camera yet. Subscribe now, because when that moment comes, you need to already be here. The court never lies. And right now, in April 2026, it is speaking louder than it ever has in the modern era of tennis. Jannik Sinner is 24 years old. He woke up this Monday as world number 1 again. Not because of a ranking technicality, not because a rival withdrew from a tournament, because he walked onto 4 consecutive Masters, 1,000 courts, faced the best competition the sport could throw at him, and left each one holding a trophy. That sequence needs to sit for a moment. Paris at the end of 2025, then Indian Wells, then Miami, then Monte Carlo last week on clay, a surface he was never supposed to dominate this early. 4 titles in a row at the Masters 1,000 level. The third man in history to achieve that, joining Djokovic and Nadal. 2 names that together represent over 40 Grand Slam titles. Sinner is 24 years old and he just joined that list. But records alone do not explain what is actually happening inside this sport right now. Records are numbers on a page. What is happening right now is psychological. Something shifted inside the tour months ago, and it has been building toward a moment that professional tennis has never quite experienced at this speed or at this age. Start with what Zverev said after the Australian Open. Alexander Zverev is not a commentator sitting in a studio with nothing to lose by being generous. He is not a retired player looking back fondly at a rival from a safe distance. He is world number 3. He has won a Grand Slam title. He is one of the most physically imposing players on the tour, with one of the most powerful serves the game has produced in the last decade. He walked off the court at the Australian Open after losing to Sinner, stood in front of the cameras, and compared him directly to Novak Djokovic at his peak level. Not the current Djokovic, peak Djokovic. The version that went 70-6 in a single season. The version that won 3 Grand Slams in a calendar year on multiple occasions. That is the comparison Zverev reached for without hesitation. Then he added that Sinner barely misses. Then he called him the best player in the world, by far.
You more than deserve it. You're the best player in the world by far.
2 words carrying enormous weight from a man competing at that level, by far. Think carefully about what it takes for a top 3 player to use those words publicly. There is professional pride involved. There is ego involved. There is the uncomfortable reality that admitting someone is superior by a wide margin is essentially announcing your own limitation to the entire tennis world. Zverev said it anyway. Because standing there after what he had just experienced on that court, he felt he had no other honest choice. De Minaur said something different, but the implications sitting underneath his words were heavier. After getting beaten 3-6, 2-6, 1-6 at the Australian Open quarterfinals, a scoreline so one-sided it barely resembled a professional match, he told reporters he was not surprised anymore when he faced Sinner. That sentence sounds deceptively simple. It is not simple at all. For a professional athlete competing at the highest level of their sport, losing the capacity to be surprised by a rival means something fundamental has broken in their competitive relationship. Surprise requires uncertainty. De Minaur was telling the tennis world, publicly and on record, that when he steps onto the court against Sinner, the uncertainty's gone. He already knows what is coming. He simply cannot stop it. That is demoralization wearing a professional face. Alex de Minaur is not a journeyman filling out a draw. He is a former top 10 player who has beaten significant names across the tour for years and built a career on speed, tenacity, and competitive fight. For him to describe Sinner's dominance as something beyond surprise is a remarkable public statement about where the gap between them currently stands. Djokovic named Sinner the best player in the world back in 2024. At the time, certain sections of the tennis media dismissed it as generous praise from a legend being gracious toward the next generation. That reading was wrong. Novak Djokovic does not do gracious for the sake of public relations. His career has been defined by a refusal to cede competitive ground, mentally, physically, and strategically. When Djokovic publicly named Sinner the best, he was making a cold and accurate assessment of the competitive reality directly in front of him. Now it is 2026. The season is barely 4 months old. The question that Zverev, de Minaur, and Djokovic were all circling around from different angles has sharpened into something far more specific and considerably more dangerous to the established order of how this sport defines greatness. The word ever is beginning to enter the conversation, not loudly yet, not as a settled conclusion, but it is there, present in the spaces between what the rivals are saying and what they are clearly thinking. It is not arriving from fans on social media. It is not coming from television analysts filling airtime. It is surfacing from within the sport itself, from the players who have stood on the opposite side of the net from Sinner and experienced firsthand what he is doing to professional tennis right now. The statistical picture surrounding this season is the reason that word keeps appearing. Sinner became the youngest player in the Open era to collect every major hard-court title. 2 Grand Slams, 6 Masters 1000 titles, and the ATP Finals. The youngest in the Open era. That era stretches back to 1968, covering 58 years of professional men's tennis across generations of players and shifting conditions. Across all of that history, no man reached that collection of hard-court titles faster than Sinner at 24. He is the only player in ATP history to finish a complete season ranked first in both serve-hold percentage and break percentage simultaneously. Leading the tour in holding your own serve is significant on its own. Simultaneously leading in breaking your opponent's serve means you are dominating both halves of the game at once. No player in the recorded history of the ATP Tour managed both in the same season until Sinner did it in 2025. He went through Indian Wells and Miami in 2026 without dropping a single set across both tournaments combined. The Sunshine Double has been achieved 12 times since the Masters Series began in 1990. Federer achieved it. Djokovic achieved it multiple times. Neither of them got through both events in 1 year without dropping a set. Sinner did it first, then he immediately went to Monte Carlo on clay and won there without dropping a set until the semifinal. He broke Djokovic's record of 37 consecutive sets won at the Masters 1000 level. That record belonged to a man with 24 Grand Slam titles, a man who dominated this sport so thoroughly across 15 years that serious historians argue he is the greatest player it has ever produced. His consecutive sets record had been sitting in the history books seemingly untouchable. Sinner dismantled it inside a 3-month stretch, running from autumn 2025 through the Monte Carlo clay of April 2026. Then there is Monte Carlo itself and why it matters beyond the trophy. Clay is not historically Sinner's home surface. His game was built on hard courts, the devastating two-handed backhand generating more topspin than any other player on tour. The aggressive returning, the relentless baseline pressure. Clay was supposed to be where Alcaraz slowed him down, where the slower bounce gave other players time to find answers. Instead, Sinner arrived in Monaco, reached the final against Alcaraz, and won 7-6, 6-3 in straight sets. His first Masters 1000 title on clay, his 4th consecutive Masters title overall, his 8th Masters 1000 crown, pulling level with Alcaraz, and sitting second among active players behind only Djokovic's 40. Alcaraz had entered Monte Carlo carrying a 17-match winning streak on clay. He had won Roland Garros in 2024 and 2025. Clay was the surface where the argument for Alcaraz, being the more complete player, held its strongest ground. Sinner walked onto that surface and closed that argument inside 2 sets. After the final, Sinner said the result meant more to him than the ranking he reclaimed with it. He said the level of tennis he and Alcaraz produced in that final landed deeper than the number next to his name. That is a specific statement from a 24-year-old who has now accumulated 67 weeks at the top of the ATP rankings. He is no longer measuring success against the number. He is measuring it against the quality of what happens on the court. That shift usually marks the moment a player stops being a great champion and starts becoming something the sport struggles to find language for. Carlos Alcaraz is 22. He has won the Australian Open, Roland Garros twice, Wimbledon, and the US Open. He completed the career Grand Slam at the 2026 Australian Open. He is extraordinary. On his best day on clay, he can beat anyone alive. The argument for Alcaraz as a future all-time great is backed by results most players never accumulate in an entire career, let alone by 22. But in this specific season, Sinner is operating at a sustained level that Alcaraz cannot consistently interrupt. Their head-to-head stands at 7-10 in Alcaraz's favor overall, but Sinner has been closing that gap methodically. On clay specifically, where Alcaraz's advantage was supposed to be most durable, Sinner is now 2-3. One of those losses came at Roland Garros in a 5-set final where Alcaraz saved 3 championship points. The margins are compressing in every direction simultaneously. Here is the dimension the tennis world is sitting with quietly. When Djokovic was dominant at 24, the Big Three era was still being constructed. Federer was at his peak. Nadal was building what became the greatest clay court record the sport has seen. Djokovic was being pushed to his absolute limit by 2 all-time greats on a weekly basis. That resistance forced adaptations that turned a great player into the most decorated men's singles player in history. Sinner's primary competitive resistance comes from Alcaraz. Alcaraz is genuinely brilliant, but there is no Federer at Wimbledon forcing Sinner into 5-set emergencies on grass. There is no Nadal on clay, constructing a 14-title Roland Garros record that must be overcome. Sinner and Alcaraz share the summit with a gap between them and the rest of the field that grows more visible every week, which means the competitive pressure that historically slows even the most gifted players peaks when Sinner faces Alcaraz. He is winning those meetings with increasing regularity. The former players observing from outside understand the historical weight of what they are watching. The GOAT conversation in men's tennis spent 2 decades rotating between Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. That debate was examined from every conceivable angle. The tennis world assumed it was effectively closed and that where the next generation sat, relative to those 3 would take another decade to properly surface. Instead, a 24-year-old from San Candido in northern Italy is forcing that timeline to accelerate in front of everyone watching. Roger Federer, in praising Sinner's game, noted that Sinner generates ball speed from both forehand and backhand at almost equal rates, a balance Federer identified as rare and elite at the professional level. That observation from a man who spent 2 decades redefining technical excellence in this sport carries authority no statistic can replicate. What the rivals are admitting, some directly into microphones, some through post-match body language, some through the words they carefully choose and the ones they avoid, is that they are watching a player redefine the upper ceiling of professional tennis in real time. Zverev named it. De Minaur described the psychological reality of living inside it. Djokovic, the man who built that ceiling higher than anyone before him and defended it for 15 years, acknowledged publicly that Sinner had arrived at a level demanding honest recognition. The discomfort surrounding the word ever comes from what it implies about the legends who constructed the modern understanding of greatness. Federer's 20 Grand Slam titles, Nadal's 22, Djokovic's 24. Numbers that defined an era and consumed 2 decades of passionate argument. Sinner holds 2 Grand Slam titles at 24. The serious conversation is not about where he currently stands in that numerical comparison. It is about where the arc of his career trajectory is pointing and how far along that arc he travels before something interrupts it. Roland Garros begins in 11 days. Wimbledon follows in late June. Sinner arrives at both as world number 1 on a 17-match winning streak spanning hard courts and clay across 3 continents, carrying 4 consecutive Masters titles and a statistical profile that produces no clean historical comparison at this age, moving at this pace. The rivals have spoken honestly. The records confirm what they said. The 2026 trajectory points toward conversations this sport has not had about any player at this stage of a career. Sinner is not making the claim himself. He is standing in Monaco, saying he needs a moment to process what happened. That is exactly how every player who eventually enters the greatest of all time conversation has operated at this stage, not looking backward at what they built, looking forward at what they have not yet reached. The players around him are already further into this conversation than the public has registered. They are having it in press rooms and practice courts and quiet moments after matches where professional athletes process honestly without the filters public performance demands. They feel the weight from the only vantage point that truly matters, inside the court, at match pace, with everything on the line. That weight is why the word ever keeps surfacing in 2026. Not from hype, not from media construction, from a verdict being assembled piece by the people with the clearest view of what is happening. Men who trained their entire professional lives to compete at this level and are now standing across the net from someone making that level feel insufficient. The French Open is days away. The second half of the Grand Slam calendar is arriving faster than anyone predicted when the year began. Moments that redefine how a sport understands its own history do not announce themselves in advance. They reveal themselves on courts, in scoreboards, and in the reluctant, honest words of rivals who experience them first. If this channel has earned your trust by covering tennis without flinching from the arguments that actually matter, hit subscribe right now and turn notifications on. What is building in this sport through 2026 is not a hot streak or a good run of form. It is something that arrives rarely enough that missing it as it happens is a genuinely different experience from watching the highlights afterward. Be here for it.